What is going on, YouTube? Reverse John Stanek from Johnny Radio here, bringing you another Top 5 on this glorious Top 5 Friday, and we've basically made it halfway through the 90s, folks, so we're doing the top 5 albums of 1994. Such an amazing year in music history. This was really hard to whittle down, but I think I did it, so let's get right to it. At number 5... Vitalogy by Pearl Jam, their third album and one of their best. I mean, I put it in their top 5. It's quality from beginning to end. The opening track, Last Exit, is so hard hitting, and then Not For You, another great rocker with Eddie Vedder really showing his ability to scream and sing at the same time. You've got great ballads like Nothing Man. You've got Better Man, one of their best songs of all time, Corduroy. Of course, there's some kind of weird interludes and stuff that at the end of the album, you know, Foxy Mop Handle Mama could have done without, but, you know, it makes it for an interesting experience. You know, I wouldn't actually remove Bugs, for example, as weird a song as that is. It kind of has this charm, and it feels like a mini White album in that way, and that's part of the reason I think people have latched on to it over the years. And I think at first people were kind of like, what are these guys doing? But there's enough greatness on here to really love. So that's my number 5. Now at number 4. Mighty Joe Moon by Grant Lee Buffalo. A lot of people are not aware of this band. Of course, now Grant Lee Phillips is a solo artist. There weren't many albums by this band, but man, this is their best, I think. Just such a classic, from the title track to Happiness, like one of the greatest, very dark ballads of that whole decade, in my opinion. The great closer, Rock of Ages. You got some great upbeat rockers like Lone Star Song, the opening track, Side by Side. This Is the Life is another great tune. I mean, there's not a weak track on this whole album, and Grant Lee Phillips, I think, was just at the top of his game here. Never quite topped this in his solo career or as Grant Lee Buffalo, but man, such a great album. If you haven't heard of it, check it out right away. If you like the likes of Pearl Jam and other big bands that were commercial at that time, you can't go wrong with Grant Lee Buffalo's Mighty Joe Moon. So that's just my number 4. Now at number 3. Wildflowers by Tom Petty, my favorite Tom Petty album. I'm actually kind of shocked I only have it at number 3, but that just shows you how great 1994 was. But man, every song on here is killer, from the opening title track all the way through to Wake Up Time, which I think is actually one of the greatest closing tracks of any album of all time. But then, of course, you've got You Don't Know How It Feels, which is just such a fun, classic Petty song. You've got You Wreck Me, one of his best up-tempo rockers. And the production on this thing by Rick Rubin really takes it to another level. I mean, which is crazy to think. At that time, I think Rubin, I'm not sure if he had already started working with Johnny Cash or not, but really up to that point, he'd been working with bands more like Red Hot Chili Peppers and things like that. So it was kind of a surprise to see him work with an artist that was stripping back, especially on this album. There's so much acoustic material, but the wealth of it and the songwriting is so top-notch that no matter what Rick Rubin did, I think it would have been great anyway. But my gosh, man, all the songs on here are great. You know, Cabin Down Below and Honeybee are also very fun rockers. And then you've got some, you know, Time to Move On, Time to Get Going. So great, man. God, I love this album. Good to Be King. And I could just name all the songs. But yeah, that's just my number 3. And now at number 2. 'Cause you can't, and you don't stop. 'Cause you can't. Ill Communication by the Beastie Boys. Some of you are going to be like, how is it this high on your list? But I'm telling you, this, to me, is one of the greatest hip-hop albums of all time. And to me, it really transcends hip-hop, because You've got Sabotage, which I think is really more of a punk rock song, technically. But then you've got the Beasties really mastering their instruments and doing a lot of instrumentals on here that are all fantastic, like Sabrosa, which has this really kind of funky mixed with a Latin vibe. It's so cool. I listen to it all the time. Ricky's Theme is another great one. There's so much great bass work by Adam Yauch on this album. I mean, he's just like crazy good throughout here. On Bada Vista Vow, I think that's how you pronounce it. But of course, the opening track of Sure Shot, one of their greatest rap songs ever. Root Down is such a great groove and it makes you want to like put your teeth out. And dance along. I mean, the whole album from start to finish. You even got Q-Tip showing up on a track later in the album. It's classic start to finish, and in my opinion, the Beastie Boys' greatest accomplishment, and that's just my number 2. So now at number 1, Super Unknown by Soundgarden. My gosh, I feel like this was almost like the pinnacle of grunge music because, obviously, Nirvana's Nevermind was the best and the first that really kicked the door down. But at this point in 94, with the grunge movement as it was, taking over the radio airwaves. This was so amazing. I think even Eddie Vedder was like, man, we can't compete with this record. It's so good and so heavy. And that's the cool thing about Soundgarden is like their aptly named band just has this wall of sound that Kim Thale, especially the way he plays lead guitar, it almost gets lost in the mix, but in a beautiful way that just... It never feels showy, but then it's also like, man, when you hear those lead fills out of going back and forth on the speakers, it's like, this is just incredible. On songs like Black Hole Sun, of course, Fell on Black Days, the hits, but I love the lesser known songs like, My Wave is such a cool riff on that one. The riffs are fantastic. It feels like a mixture of like the greatest riffs of Led Zeppelin with the melodies and harmonies of the Beatles on certain parts of this album. Songs like Head Down with its acoustic vibe, but also very down-tuned and dirty. Mailman with its kind of bluesy swagger. Let Me Drown, the opening song. I love every song on here. I wish that the one song called Half at the end was off the album because that feels like just a nonsense track with Ben Shepherd doing weird vocals. But the rest of this album is just incredible. One of the best of the decade. And yeah, that's my list, guys. So let me know in the comments below what you think. What would your top 5 be? So many great albums in that year. I didn't even mention the Page and Plant Unleaded album that was, had that Kashmir Live that I mentioned on my top 5 songs of that year. But Weezer, of course, also almost made my list. But guys, we got top 5s every Friday, album reviews, top 100s, other big countdowns, and so much more. Thank you for watching. And as always, Viva La Vinyl. So guys, thanks so much for watching. Please like, subscribe, and be sure to ring the bell for notifications so you can always see great quality content like you're seeing on the screen right now. Thank you so much for supporting Johnny Radio, and I'll see you soon.